Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle. Today we're privileged to have with us Mark Modesti, and this is an interesting program today because we are talking about influential intrapreneurs. And Mark is a consultant for a Fortune 50 company, and he sees his role within that organization as an intrapreneur. So Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure.
Hey, I think it's interesting. A lot of people are not even familiar with the concept or the phrase intrapreneurship, but it's. I worked for a large corporation a few years back for about 10 years, and in the corporate world, there's something called the intranet. So it's not the internet, it's the intranet, and that's kind of like the inside corporation's web, kind of presence, and you can post up things and communicate. So I think it's an interesting concept that entrepreneurial mindsets can be executed under the umbrella in the corporate world, and it's kind of the mindset of intrapreneurship. So tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how intrapreneurship can be a mindset that people can follow and adopt no matter whether you're working for yourself or for in the corporate world.
Yeah, it's great, and it's not something I've known for long enough. I mean, I talk to entrepreneurs every day as part of my work, and they are interesting creatures. I really enjoy learning about their stories of how they started the business, and I guess when you boil it down to its essence, it's really been a matter of them having an idea and figuring out how to activate it. And I've learned that that's not limited to, the external world and the entrepreneur. That's really needed possibly more than ever, I think, inside the organization. And one of the things, there's a lot of forces that I think make it a requirement. And one of them is, we all see this emerging technology. I don't know if you saw this, but Google the other day, there was a story about Google Translate. And did you see this?
I did not.
So they changed the engine in Google Translate. Prior to that, it had been phrase-based. But they put in an artificial intelligence engine that is able to learn. And what this engine did on its own, without any direction, was to invent its own language to help it better translate and move beyond phrase-based translation. And I thought that was just amazing. And there's like two reactions. One is, OMG, and the other is WTF. And I mean by WTF, where's the future?
Or yikes, that's a little too big brother.
And it's coming. It's not coming. It's here.
It's here.
So if you're an organization, and you're a senior manager in an organization, senior leadership, you've got to be thinking about that, and you've got to realize that all of the information or the knowledge or what it's going to take to accommodate this kind of a change is going to take leadership from all levels in the organization.
I agree with that, and I love it, and I like that forward-thinking vision you just spoke of. And here's where I think it plays into intrapreneurship and entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur is, that leader, and they're passionate, enthusiastic, and they're trying new things and executing new things. And then you think of the traditional corporate, we've always done it this way, and here's the policy and procedures manual, and we have to do it this way, and we check the boxes, and now we're done, and we quote-unquote punch out for the day and go home. Well, intrapreneurial mindsets take your job within that organization, and it's almost like, how would you do your job if you were the CEO and you had money to invest, to expand, and to bring innovation in and technology in to take your department, your division to the next level? And of course, you still have to get approvals and all these things and work within the confines of the corporate world. But I would submit to you that the more kind of division department leaders that would take that mindset up to their next level boss, all of a sudden now it's like this new, fresh feeling of I don't know, what do you want to call it? But, like an enthusiastic passion that you're bringing to the job, because it's like the idea you just said, hey, how could we use this in our day-to-day, and could we make our clients happier by doing, or could we motivate our team better to accomplish the goals of our organization better because we can use this tool or that tool? And those tools and those mindsets may be more entrepreneurial, but we're bringing it into the fold of our corporate world. So can you speak to kind of some of those things that you see out there as well?
Oh, yeah, and you touched on one there, is the excitement.
Yeah.
If you're paying attention, there's all kinds of opportunity to make things better for someone. In my case, for a customer or internally within our organization, you don't have to look around too long to see that there's opportunity. Now, sometimes it's disguised as problems, right? But there's opportunity to say, and maybe this is the essence of entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial mindset, is to say, I wonder what would happen if. And coming up with an idea, but, ideas are great, but everything begins with an idea, but the idea is really only the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that what is compelling, I heard this term the other day and I loved it. On a call, someone said, instead of waiting for permission and instead of asking everybody how they feel about this, let's create a demonstration project. And it's much more compelling to come back with the proposal that here's what it looks like when you try this. Here's what happened. Here's what we've learned. And here's what we're proposing. And through that process of creating a demonstration project, you find out how feasible your idea is and what needs to change for it to work and what the issues are. I mean, a lot of things come to light in that, but it's an exciting process. I mean, we all can easily get into this mode where we're just hitting our marks, and that has to happen. But there's so much more that's possible. And to me, that's the eye opener, is that it turns out work's a lot more exciting when you try to do more to help others.
Yeah, you said something interesting there with, sometimes those problem or opportunities are looking like problems. And I remember listening to a training program once years ago, and I know that it's probably a story told by many speakers even these days, but I remember this example of the front desk clerk at a hotel, and they were trained that whenever there was an issue, quote unquote, at the front desk, they didn't call the boss and say, come down here, we got a problem. They would use the phone. They were trained to use the phone to call up to the manager's office in front of the customer and in a kind voice say, sir, we need you down here at the front desk. We have an opportunity. And the manager would come in, and then they would discuss the opportunity to fix the problem or exceed their expectations or wherever you wanted to go with that. But it's that mindset shift, because if it was like, we got another problem, now it's like adversarial. But if we look at it like that opportunity, because what is the opportunity? Come on, this guy just had this and this and this happen before they walked in the door, and he's reacting in a way that's probably not as bad as it really is, but let's figure it out. Let's kind of calm down. But when we look at something as an opportunity, not a problem, it changes the whole landscape of that situation. I think that's a huge piece to take, internally. Now, in an organization, in the corporate world, I think that that is a very common mindset, but it's hard to execute. So let's take that thought and merge into the next question, which is, what's the importance of trying things outside your comfort zone? Because what I just described, that ain't comfortable the first time you try it, but once you do try that and you see how the interaction went and you compare it to, well, the last time something like that came up, it was a mess, and this, wow, we kind of almost high-fived with the customer because it worked out well. So talk about that comfort zone.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to talk about that a couple of years ago, Mike. I gave a TED Talk, and the title was The Argument for Trouble. And you reminded me of it when you talked about the person at the front desk, and because I made the statement in that talk that trouble is like the gatekeeper between where we are and where we want to be. You're right. That I think sometimes our trouble with trouble is that we're so troubled about it. and these problems, it's easy for us to get so stuck in what's wrong that we don't talk about what's next. And there's always a what's next. So I think that's absolutely the truth. Is the problems are an indicator, and then I don't want to get too semantical about this, but what's the opportunity, that's not a problem now, but could be or could become one?
Yeah, you know what you just did? You did something that a lot of I was listening to a Tony Robbins talk the other day. I saw him live 2 weeks ago, and then I was re-listening to a talk or his Power to Be Your Best kind of series, and he says the same thing. The power really is asking yourself the right questions. Well, you just asked a question that was 2 or 3 levels higher than what most people would think. It's not just why is this problem happening? It's what would be happening in the future? What's another problem that could come up that we could solve? Let's get ahead of this curve.
Yeah. And of course, the questions are so valuable in all walks of life, but they involve others. And I think that this is something I'm trying to focus on now. We may or may not get into this mentoring idea with millennials, but I've found that there's this condition that I have called OPS. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's overly profound syndrome. And I have this tendency to, when I'm in a conversation, to try to say something or make a statement rather than ask a question. And I just find it again and again so powerful. If I can ask the right question, it's going to be so much more impactful.
Yeah.
And it's an art. It's something we can always get better at. And it's so valuable. And, in this case, maybe it's asking myself the question. It looks like a problem, but what's the opportunity that it could be pointing me to?
Yeah. We could probably spend a lot of time on, question-based selling, question-based leadership, question-based, personal development, and it is an art form, and I think it's hard, and it sounds, all fine to throw out one and go, that's a good one, but then how do I apply it to me? So I think that's the hard part, is seeing how it needs to be done, and then how do I apply it to me? So here that kind of leads us right into what you touched on earlier a second ago, which is mentoring. Well, sometimes that problem can be the opportunity that some other external force, a mentor, can, if you find the right one and ask the right way and don't just, suck them dry with me, I need this and thank you, see you later, but a good, solid mentoring relationship, those kinds of people can see that in you and then give you some guidance on, well, here's a good question to ask of yourself. Yeah,
that's such a great point. And I have a mentor. He's 74. I just think the world of him. If he wasn't a mentor, he'd be a hero to me. Maybe he's both, but it's so valuable. But I think it's also the willingness to ask for help.
Yeah.
I saw a study recently that said that millennials long for relationship, connection, but they're afraid to ask for help. And then I also heard about a study where it said that one of the CEO's biggest liabilities or weaknesses is failure to ask for help. And I think back to a conversation in 1992 with the wisest man I've ever met, and the change the impact that had on me for my life since then and from now on, was that one conversation where I basically wrote him a letter, read one of his books, wrote him a letter, and found out he lived in the same city here in Dallas, and he invited me to come and have a conversation. It was life-changing. But it's that initial impulse of saying, I wonder if he would talk to me.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the study about CEOs and millennials and asking for help. I think you can take out the word CEO, take out the word millennial, and insert every people group, every segment, every demographic out there. I mean, I think that's, the age-old issue is, men don't want to ask for directions. Well, people don't want to ask for help. And it might not mean you're broken, you need help. It might just be, how can I go to the next level? And this person is 10 levels past me, and quote unquote success leaves clues, and let's model success. So maybe that, maybe a takeaway is, who's someone that you look up to, admire, that has achieved some success in the realm that you want to go? So business, personal, professional, whatever. And then just kind of reach out and ask the question. Maybe it's not someone in your hometown, but maybe it's someone that would take your phone call, and maybe, and I've mentioned this to people before too. I've heard it, everything these days is, swipe and adapt. So I know I've heard it somewhere. It's not original to me, but, how could you, someone posted on Facebook recently that said, I am sick and tired of people going, hey, I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee and pick your brain, when in reality, they want a lot of my good knowledge for a $3 cup of coffee. What they should say is, I would love to get some tips on this and this and this strategy, and for your time, I would love to donate $100 to your favorite charity. And maybe that catches the attention of that mentor to go, all right, this guy, his heart's in the right place, and yeah, I'll take a call with them. I'll see what I can, for 20 minutes and kind of, give them some guidance. So I think that's a really neat thing to think about, is everybody needs that help, and sometimes it's not hard to just reach out and ask for it.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that surprises me so often, all the way back to that author, speaker, successful businessman in 1992, to having an idea and calling the director of communications at this very large company that I work with, who I've had some interaction with about another topic where I was trying to see if I could add some value to what I know he's trying to do within the organization. But I had just walked out of a meeting with a customer, and this was the dream customer, where they basically said, hey, we can't do this without you. And I just thought, well, there again, I wonder if this is something that we could leverage. And then a good example of how we help our clients. So I called him and explained the story, and he said, we've been looking for someone just like that. And ended up being a 6-part video series on that you can watch on the web. I can give you the link. It just tells the story of how we help this client. But I know that there probably is a good segment of folks that they just may not feel like they have the time. My experience is that I'm always surprised at how willing people are to help, but you do have to give it some thought and have some value to bring to it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think too many people want it the easy way. They want to push a button and get it right now, because the millennial generation is so entrenched in technology and instant everything that the tendency then is entitlement, and I want it now and I don't want to work for it, just give it to me. And I think that there's that element of, all right, show me the path and I'm going to buckle down and get to work. I think that's a big piece. So, hey, I think obviously we can probably talk for 4.5 hours on these kinds of topics, but, let's wrap it up with what's a key thought, key takeaway that people can take away from this conversation today?
Yeah, I think one of them is that, you don't have to try to boil the ocean. And I would suggest that a listener, just give some thought to a challenge you face internally within your organization. If you're an intrapreneur, or if you're you have designs in that area, just figure out a challenge. And what is a single step you could take, an idea that wouldn't involve boiling the ocean? And don't look at it as something that has to be implemented as a program within your organization, but maybe it starts as a project. It's just a project to say, how can we impact this? And get some other people to help you think about it. Leverage your connections all that you can, but before you try to take it to the top and put it in front of the senior management, develop a kind of a working prototype that you've tried, and maybe you've done surveys and you've corroborated some information that can make it compelling. And just take a run at it. I think you'll be surprised at the satisfaction you'll get out of that process, and and the success that you can have by just taking a run at it.
Yeah, I love that. That's a wonderful thought to encapsulate many of the things we touched on today. So, hey, Mark, I really appreciate your time. And, I located a link that I will post in the show notes. It's your profile on Strikingly. So I will make sure that is posted up so people can connect with you and learn more. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. That went by really fast, Mike.
Thanks.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.